these people who have been on the bench behind the frontliners of like Deft and Pawn, and then they immediately showed in week 1 they can compete, and boy, they brought out their A game.
Yeah, and they can compete with Firelolly as well as another different top laner. So with Mouse and Firelolly in a roster, to be able to compete with what was WE and Vici in the first league, two teams we said were going to be difficult, can only speak praises towards how EDG went.
I was just so surprised. I mean, everybody was surprised. We were talking about if this is like you're throwing in Firelolly, you're throwing in Mouse, if there's and Zed as well, because it's not so much Zed, it's the fact that they lost Deft, and you're just like, well, if there's going to be a split that you lose the first place, it's going to be this one. But no, they're just as good, just as smart.
Just deciding to show that, hey, we've got the organization to back it up. Question is, though, their opponents, Game Talents, they've got quite a challenge ahead of them if they want to try to break this down. We've talked about the strengths of EDG. We've talked a little bit about the strengths of Game Talents. What weaknesses have we seen out of EDG that Game Talents can attempt to capitalize on?
I guess there's a lot of over-aggression, perhaps, from Firelolly. Playing a champion like Vi is very indicative of his play style, and I think he's being a little bit reminiscent of what Clearlove wants to provide to the team also, with that hyper-aggressive nature now. That can always be exploited. If you're aggressive as a jungler, you're either ganking too much or you're invading too much. And it's not necessarily too much unless they catch you doing it. And something like we saw yesterday from Ben 4 on IMA. Can be a little bit too much here and there and can lose you games.
Yeah, and I remember when Game Talents were good, or at least when they were having good performances, it was based off of the fact that they would play Trundle support, play Trundle top, and if you were to over-aggress onto them, they would 100% punish you.
And that's the thing with Game Talents. They're known as the late-game team-fighting team. The one thing they excelled at was akin to something like Team WE, and where they would go well, and it's hit about 40 minutes. Just survive with your Jinx and your Tahm Kench composition, have a Poppy to protect them all in the top lane from Gimgoon, and just team fight. Just 5v5, at them with a standard comp and actually get those victories.
Yeah, so what I'm looking at for Game Talent specifically, I just want them to survive early. They couldn't do that versus Chaogu, but if they can survive early, if they can get to the point where their composition, we don't know what it is, but technically their style indicates that they love to play those team fight comps. We're even seeing a lot of we're seeing a lot of Victor in the mid lane lately globally. That's just right down Republic's road. So if he wants to pick it up, this is the time to do just that.
Yeah, you can see Mako on your screen as he is preparing for this setup. A big thing for me is going to be taking a look at these pick ban phases. Obviously, we started off with 10 bans in week 1. The teams have had about a weekend to play with it professionally, and I'm sure they've been scrimming and practicing with it. But EDG's pick ban in particular has been stellar throughout all of week 1.
It's interesting to see what they like to ban away specifically on Red Side, right? Because the three top bans that we see from Red Side are Rengar, Camille, and of course LeBlanc. Specifically, EDG will always ban the Rengar and Camille. They're not comfortable playing it naturally, but they actually do love to keep up the LeBlanc and force Blue Side to actually ban it away. And then we saw that one game where, you know what, CA picks it up on when they were playing WE, and they dealt with it fairly well, even though CA went off.
Yeah, and EDG have a higher probability of looking towards Jace and other assorted champions, so they're building themselves team comps and drafts around the coming metas and patches, which could be a potential danger point in this patch. Thankfully, the champions are still strong now, even though they were also strong at patch ago, so EDG should be fine.
So then, knowing that EDG are so good at this champion select, can we expect them to allow this sort of team fighting comp? We're actually going to have to say goodbye to Rusty as we get ready for the cast for this Game 1 between EDG and Game Talents. But I'm going to pose that question to you, Raz. Do you think EDG is smart enough to ban away the late game team fighting that Game Talents is fond of?
I think they just have to play against it, because EDG technically they're a smarter team, and once they get to that point in the game, that's when they like to... They're similar styles in a sense, so I actually think that they should be fine with it. Right now they're on Blue Side, so I love the fact that they're already getting rid of the Singed and Camille. So right there they're saying, you know what, Gimgoon, we saw what you were doing week 1. We're just going to smack it away.
Yeah, and we saw that Singed yesterday. Righteous Glory Ghost chasing up to people. Absolutely hilarious, but also a little bit terrifying as the final ban is going to be rounded out. Zyra, as we are racing through these pick bans right quick. That's Varus immediately locked in for EDG.
Yeah, it's a solid priority pick we've been seeing, especially in 7.1. Even though in 7.2 you see the lethality changes come through, we've been seeing in EU during the 7.1 patch that people have been going towards the lethality anyways on the Varus. As the game goes on, he can just threaten the backline with his poke, regardless of whether there's a fat Maokai in front of him. So I've been liking the pick, especially since it disregards supports in the poke supports, or at least, like for instance, Zyra's already gone, but generally it makes it so the laning phase much easier for you.
And with that, You've got Lee Sin and Misfortune picked up to pair with that Varus. To try to destroy him, however, Game Talents have picked up Malzahar, and now they've also got Kha'Zix as they're looking for their final pick on this side. Ryze is currently the look at. Great way to lock somebody down who ends up getting out of position. Perhaps a Lee Sin going a little bit too far. Game Talents look like they might be taking the sort of composition that can capitalize on over-aggression.
It would be smart for Game Talents to just focus down mid bans here. They've already taken down the Orianna, but I do want to see a Cassiopeia ban as well. Make it so it's much easier for Ryze to just lane through this here. I really do like what I see because Kha'Zix is fantastic into the Lee Sin, and on top of that, you got that Ryze as well, so if you can have that mid priority, you can really set up the bot lane gank anytime you want. And with that being said, Gimgoon hasn't chosen a champion, but the fact that you have Malzahar and the Kha'Zix means that just set him up with a tank. It really doesn't matter who you pick up here. So that just means EDG, they don't have to focus on a ban towards that top side of the map because really Gimgoon's just trying to fill with it, whatever the team needs here.
Seems like Game Talents have taken your advice as it is double mid ban. Orianna and Corki going to be the bans from Game Talents as Ashe banned away from Zubin, and looks like EDG does want to prioritize that bottom lane.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the Corki banned out. It's fine because Corki, he's definitely, he achieves what Ryze does a little bit better because once he does get to the point where he can wave clear mid lane, he's safe because he gets that early MR item and then he can just roam out with his package, and so you're just trying to catch up as Ryze. So that's a solid pick. With that being said, EDG will probably end up going towards Cassio since it is left up.
Very strong. We've seen Cassio into Ryze a couple of times already. It can go either way depending on the skill of the players, but looks like that it is Caitlyn for the pickup. Ooh. And Syndra making it all the way through.
Almost forgot about the Syndra, so that's actually really solid because Syndra just sets up mid ganks so easy. If Fire Lolly can set up with the Syndra to be able to get Republic off the map early, then that would be really well done.
Yeah, just giving it a hover, but there's no need for them to pick it up right now unless they wanted to prepare to swap champions.
Ooh.
So that means that they could just trade once instead of having to trade champions 3 times.
I love the Maokai simply because it's a takeaway, right? We talked about the fact that Gimgoon will want to pick up a tank top laner, right? He really Poppy, Maokai, even, let's say, Sion's a bad example, but just like as a general point. But Maokai just does everything just as good. So the fact that the Maokai was picked up away from him is solid. If they do go for the Rumble, it's focusing too much on the lane. It'll make it fairly hard for Game Talents to team fight, but it is a good team fighting champion regardless.
Might be looking towards that, the terror of Noxus. Kled instead is going to be locked in for Gimgoon as Scout, taking the Golden Emperor of Shurima on that Azir in the mid lane. And this looks like to be a very interesting matchup.
Yeah, so the Azir is really interesting. He's hovering over the exhaust because he definitely needs it going up against Ryze. He's going to get shoved in. It's going to have Azir has usually been a fantastic shoving lane early. And that's going to be the case because early on, level 1 through 3, he's going to be just shoving in constantly because he has it. What's going to be difficult is once Ryze actually can just wave clear out, once he starts getting mana items, the first stack when he gets the tier, once he gets the catalyst and start leveling up his E, it's going to be too hard for Azir to actually catch up to that Ryze if he does tend to roam.
It certainly will be. One of the big points that you hit on with Rusty before the game is, can Game Talents survive the early game to get towards the late game? Do you think this composition enables them, or at least sets them up to be able to do that?
Their early game is just fine. I think from looking at the composition that EDG has set up, it's fairly tame in the sense that they do want to look to team fight later on in the game. They have Maokai in the top lane, they have Azir in the mid lane, and of course Lee Sin. So Lee Sin is going to be, usually Lee Sin's fairly active early, but he doesn't want to catch out Kha'Zix because Kha'Zix is just going to tear him to pieces. So you just have that strong top side that's going to be great as the game goes on with the playmaker of Lee Sin. But it's just going to be hard for them to do much early. It's going to be Game Talents with the early game priority.
We'll have to see if they can take advantage of EDG during that early game. Perhaps they try to go for something where they don't even have to wait for the late game if they can win in the early or the mid game. Of course, this is EDG, who are currently looking very strong, #1 in their group, defeating out WE last week. It's certainly going to be a challenge to see if that can happen.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun to see. I think this is going to be a great game for Game Talents to show us if they can actually play well early. just looking at it, it's like, okay, you know what, you have the Kled. We haven't seen Kled since, of course, RNG played it in the first week, and it was a bit of a disaster, but it's a good lane for Kled. So this is actually something we should focus in on, because GameTown specifically have just been hammering in top lane counter after top lane counter. Will this actually work out, and will Wushuang actually play towards that top side and set him up well?
Well, we certainly are going to find out, as it appears that we have loaded onto the Rift for game number 1 between EDG and GT. Standard setup so far, defensive 5-man lines across the map, as everyone seems to be just hanging out early on. Looks like normal on night items as well. Koro going for that corrupting potion in the top lane.
What we're seeing in the bottom lane is interesting. We're seeing double longswords basically from both sides. So Zet's carrying a longsword, Caitlyn's carrying a longsword. It's going to be fine for Caitlyn. She's just going to be holding on to that, looking for some... but specifically looking at Zet, that could just go into an actual early armor penetration item. He might just look for that poke build. I would want to actually have him play the attack speed build, because he actually has a really solid front line and Azir, and a lot of protection from... a lot of protection from the Azir, but a lot of like that front line from Koro 1 on the Maokai. You really can't get past the soldiers as the game goes on.
Yeah, especially if he does to go for an early Rylai's on that Azir.
Yeah.
It's been a while since we've seen the Emperor of Shurima really prominently.
We've been seeing him in North American LCS. It's been fun to see King play him through. I think even Bjergsen has played him. That's always fun to see how he works that in the mid lane. Once he does scale up, it's actually just obnoxious, because he is still a wave clearing god. He's just one of those champions that you're like, yeah, I mean, I guess we're trying to set up a siege mid, but he just keeps clearing it out and poking us down.
Once you get to that like 30-35 minute mark, Azir is just going to have a great time.
Yeah, it's going to be really awkward for him, because he's going to get that. His first build is usually towards Naxxra's Tooth, and that's really awkward because he doesn't have any AP. That's just like, you're getting a lot of attack speed, but suddenly you just can't skirmish at all. So Republic is going to be a little bit of a terror as this game starts off.
Yeah, taking a look at the junglers, they both started topside and are now getting down to their second buffs, as level 2 is picked up for both Mako and Zet. It's a match with Zubin and Savoki. Fire Lolly, he's going to take the blast cone. No, he's actually walking down. He's going to get to Tribush faster than Wushuang.
Yeah, he actually did a pretty fast clear of blue, that wolf camp, red. So he's going to be able to get to that Scuttle Crab a lot earlier, which is great for him, because his bot lane actually is fairly solid. The Varus should be able to poke out the Caitlyn. It's actually a historical counter in a sense that you have such a long range on your Q. At least if you can land it, then you're really good to set up. Savoki is in a pretty awkward place.
That's exhaust traded between both of those supports, as Mako is eating a lot of Voidlings. 7.1 Malzahar. Ooh, that's some damage.
All right, you know, the misfortune usually is the counter here, in the sense that you can auto out those Voidlings, but if there's a million Voidlings on you, suddenly you're getting a little bit too overwhelmed. Suddenly you got to back away entirely. So the exhaust down, that's a bit much.
Yeah. Well, it's traded. It's 1 for 1. So not entirely certain who we can say has the advantage there, as Scout eats a snare and Republic trades it back using his Ghost very early on. He's got very little mana, but he knows he's got a jungler in the wings, and Fire Lolly is even here as well.
This is going to be big. This is actually going to be really big, because right now the usual Rise points is that the fact that he wants to farm up until he can get the earliest back as possible to get his tier. He wants to be stacking up his tiers quickly, but Azir's is not going to let him have a proper back timing. With that being said, Wushuang seems to have found a bit of a place in the top lane, but there's a ward that catches him out.
Yeah. He was outside of the Scryer's Bloom that Fire Lolly did just pop, but still spotted out by that early ward, going to be farming up.
So that's Rise actually did find a way to back, but he is so far behind off it because he couldn't get a good back time. He's just decided, you know what, I'm fine, I'm going to lose a couple waves here, just that one wave, just to get that back, just to get the early tier. So he's made a bit of a commitment. It would have been great if Kha'Zix actually could have helped him out a little bit more, but I guess Kha'Zix recognized that Lee Sin was hovering around the mid lane, and if he were to do that, he would have been in a really tough position. Oh, Mako!
Ooh, he just got back in the lane and immediately eats some damage back.
He didn't take too much damage, so at the very least, he didn't get mauled like last time. that would have been unfortunate.
That's one of the worst things. Whenever you get shoved out of lane, you make it back in, then the opponent all-ins you, and they have 3/4 health, and you have 1/4 health, and you're like, well, I guess I'm recalling again.
Yeah, you look at your watch, you're like, you know what time it is? I guess, I gotta go back to base.
You've got 50 more gold, like, I'm gonna get a potion, all right.
Yeah. But he's learned his lesson. He's fine now. There's no exhaust on either side, so he's actually able to just auto out the minions that are, or at least the voidlings that are in front of him, so he's not going to be completely blasted.
Yeah, that's 10 extra gold, killing out every single voidling. You can see he has gone for an early boots first, as his AD carry is going to get a recall, opting for the tier build first. This is going to start stacking that, and a pickaxe out of Zubin.
Okay, so that's a... I'm just trying to figure out what that longsword is going to be building into. But overall, I just like the fact that it just confirms that, you know, Zubin, or Zet is going to be going towards that armor penetration build. Scout's going to be doing predominantly the sustained damage, so he's going to be fine with that. It's just going to be Zet actually just looking to poke out Zubin, looking to poke out even Kha'Zix and Savoki on the Malzahar. So this is what I love about the poke build, is specifically how the meta has shifted so that we only see, well, not only, but predominantly we do see very squishy junglers. So then suddenly you just have more targets to hit.
Mm-hmm. With that, Wushuang going for the double longsword. Fire Lolly actually going for the Ranger's smite first, opting for additional vision, and you can see EDG have set up a very strong line across the river. You can count 1, 2, 3, 4. Pink, pink, ward, ward.
Yep. And honestly, just having the that ward smite item is just great because you're Lee Sin. You want to have more wards to jump to. If you already jumped on your trinket, well, guess what? You have more wards in your fake inventory. So I just love it just because it's Lee Sin. You can use it as an aggressive, basically aggressive item, even though technically for many champions, it's a defensive item.
Yeah, going for the insec. Both of the junglers still looking for level 6 as Zubin takes some damage down there. You just saw the fan vote on the bottom of your screen. 89% of Chinese fans think that EDG is going to take the win. They are heavily projected, but that is a lot.
Yeah, Zubin is, I mean, that fan votes a lot. I mean, that's fair because EDG is a monster right now. But look at Zet here. He's actually completely demolishing Zubin. Every hero is hating this man. This man has to walk away. Get out of here. I don't want to see you anymore. That was a bit... Every arrow is legitimately hitting it. The refs need to check this man's mouth because there's a program that's just doing all the work for him.
Auto aim. That's the secret.
That is ridiculous. I mean, this is supposed to be a fantastic matchup for Varus. That's just how the lane goes for him. We've seen some matchups actually, or at least sometimes the Caitlyn will eke ahead because he can dodge out the Q. But that's not the case of Zubin. Zubin is actually going to have to really respect that. Now he has that 10 CS deficit in the matchup.
Yeah, going for that recall. He's going to get some boots now. Gotta dodge these skill shots, man. Try to get out of the way as both Republic and Wushuang again return down to that bottom side of the river. It is an Infernal Drake, so they clear out those two pink wards and try to maintain some control. Wushuang now going to give that blue buff over on the top side. Koro looks like he's sitting on his own pink ward nice and safe while maintaining vision with some help from Fire Lolly.
Yeah, I think Wushuang has to hover over mid lane. He needs to actually do something here because the Azir did set up, I guess, well, now he's shoved in because he's looking to possibly back, but earlier on he was actually holding the wave, so it would be very awkward, and you'd have to constantly have the back, like, Fire Lolly's probably here, looking to gank me, I have to look, I need some help. So, you know, right now Scout's been actually playing out the wave management of this lane fairly strongly.
Game Talents looks like they're setting up for something right here. They pull 4 members, sit 2 of them on top of a pink ward in Tri, Malzahar and Caitlyn, bring down Ryze. Mako, you're not going to like this. No. I've seen this in a horror movie once. Oh, he gets the ward and gets out. Oh, man.
And the arrow to just, you know, shoo him away.
I love how he was so terrified. Like,
I mean, I feel like Mako's a great support for a reason. Any other support will just walk into that, say, you know what, I'm going to ward this bush. Technically, we don't see anybody, but there is no way there are 3 members in that bush. But, you know, he's respecting that, gets that long-range ward out. So,
yeah. Caitlyn, Kha'Zix, Ryze, and Malzahar are missing. Do you face check a bush or no?
That's a nice adventure game, honestly.
Yeah, it's very short. There's a very quick end to that adventure game. Wushuang, oh, he actually manages to sneak in here. And, stealth forward. They go on to Mako. Chains of Corruption is going to catch Zubin. That's first blood. Game Talents.
Oh, there we go. So that's exactly what they need. I love the fact that Wushuang is actually looking to gank the bottom lane. It came out of nowhere, honestly, because even Ryze is in the lane, so they're technically thinking, well, there's no dive that's happening, and you know, Kha'Zix should be playing towards that top side in the Maokai lane. But no, he's actually just checking up on the bottom lane. He has the Malzahar that hit level 6, so Wushuang just says this is clearly the easiest gank to make happen.
Kim Goon's been on a bit of an island the entire game so far. Even in CS, he's been knocked off of Skarl, and I'm sure Koro is quite appreciative of that. In the mid lane, you can see Scout and Republic continuing to shove each other in back and forth. And in fact, Scout has opened up about a 18-20 CS advantage, and there's still Zet's advantage from the early pressure he was landing. Despite the first blood of game talents, EDG still lead by about 500 gold.
It's just a strong laning phase from the bottom lane and the mid lane. So Zet has actually just been playing the matchup how it's supposed to be played. He even has the Dirk here, the serrated Dirk, so he's able to just constantly threaten Zubin. Zubin has to come to lane and say, you know what, I guess I'm going back to lane, to the fountain. Ooh, that being said.
Ooh, he's calling for it.
He's calling for Skarl, but Skarl's not going to be here to save him.
Oh, that's so sad. You can hear him calling Skarl's name. Is he going to turn it around? He actually gets Skarl back. Fireball. He chases him over the wall. He follows it up. Gimgoon. Oh my goodness. I feel like we're watching the character's lore be rewritten right here. Gets knocked up and a double kill for Gimgoon. That is the most Kled thing I have ever seen.
You know, you're calling for Skarl, but you already had his health. 2 kills for no reason. That's just not being able. That's just Fire Lolly, honestly, not playing enough against the Skarl and Kled. With that being said,
flash snare and Wushong gets knocked in, slides back out, gives a bit of ping pong, but he's gonna drop the game talents. They're 4-0.
That game talent suddenly hitting them hard with a 900 gold lead. But honestly, you're looking at it, it's just like, wait a minute, 4 kills. 900 gold. Wait a minute, this should be longer than that, but that's just because his EDG has been playing the lanes so damn well. Like the mid lane has been doing incredibly well, bot lane's been doing incredibly well. Even top lane has actually been even in CS, if not even like 2 CS ahead in a karma matchup. So you're like, EDG's doing so fantastically here. And then suddenly everything goes wrong. So Fire Lolly's like, all right, I should be able to kill this man. Except Gimgoon, here's the thing about Kled. He doesn't increase his rage bar until he actually hits champions.
Yeah.
And when he hits champions, suddenly he just randomly has Skarl again. You're like, wait a minute, your fury was at 0. Now it's at 100.
Yo, Chain of Corruption catches Zubin. Wow, that's a lot of damage. Heal and flash, and he barely gets out alive.
Yeah, you have Zet and Mako to rely on here, so even though mid lane and top lane had a little bit of a problem, Fire Lolly's recognized that bottom lane is actually still doing really well, still reliable, so let's just take down this turret.
Trying to break down with some help from Fire Lolly. Wushong taking advantage of that by stealing the blue, but that first turret is going to go over to EDG, split amongst those bot lanes and the jungle. Scout's still having a grand old time, still nearly 20 CS over Republic. But again, Savoki is going to catch up from the side. Wushong helps secure the kill for Republic, 5-0. And despite the fact that it is 5-0, it's almost even in gold.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the towers, that 1 tower advantage, and on top of that, the actual CS from these lanes. So just looking at the Azir matchup, I mean, Azir, he has that Stinger, he has double Doran's Ring. It's still not enough, obviously, because Ryze is just going to stun you forever. And so he has the Exhaust, and that's the biggest point, because you either pick between Exhaust and Cleanse so you can actually get out of the situation. So now that he doesn't have Cleanse and he's not going to be building any QFS items until much, much later on into the game, he's just going to get stunned up to infinity. So Scout is the weak point right now at this very moment in the game, and I think game talents are just going to look to try and pick him off as much as possible.
Yeah, the Infernal Drake is now picked up by game talents, and they are going to use that advantage despite all of the vision that EDG have set up on that side of the map. It is just a Christmas tree of wards. It is still going over to game talents with that early advantage. Now they are sending their bottom lane briefly mid and then top to let Scout catch that fat minion wave bottom.
I just love the fact that they're just being able to do this without getting caught out with a single ward. So that just means that, I mean, sure, they're catching the wave at the turret, so that just means the bottom lane of game talent should be able to get there as soon as possible. So that just means that, you know, the initial pressure actually doesn't mean too much, unless if Caitlyn actually commits to the side lane. So we just might have a 1-3-1 off the gate in the, I guess, 14 minutes into the game.
And to return to that story thread we were talking about a little earlier, can Game Talent survive the early game to get to that late game team fighting comp where they saw success late last split? So far, they're going even with EDG at the 15-minute mark. They're up 5 kills. They've got the first big neutral objective in that Infernal Drake. And despite the fact they're having a little trouble in their bot and mid lane, still seem to be doing a great job. Wushong. I'm not sure if that was an intentional side leap or like just a panic. Oh god, there's Lee Sin here.
No, I think it was intentional. Just because he wanted to be able to get the damage by not get hit by the Q. So that just means that Fire Lally is like, well, I have no way to return damage here.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can not take that much damage. So right now, actually, just to hit on the point of late game talents, I don't think that. Oh, just kidding!
Regret, Wushong.
Was he on the top of a ward? Wait a minute.
He was, yeah. There's a pink ward,
you're right.
a control ward that he's now pinging.
He's like, wait a minute, this
There's
ward.
a ward here.
Someone deal with this ward. So yeah, that was actually just a trap. A trap
Yeah.
that he should have been able to see.
I mean, it wasn't even a trap. There was a ward there. This was not an intentional setup from EDG.
Yeah. Yeah.
This was like he was
About
going.
that.
He was going for a stroll, and then he walked into the bus when it was coming down. The bus didn't try to hit him.
So just going, this is why I want to hit this point about late game game talents, is because that just happened. Game talents actually needs to be able to resolve this mid game. As the game goes on, it's actually going to be a lot harder for Ryze to do his job because Azir actually just out damages and outranges the Ryze. So Ryze actually has to flash in to be able to not take that much damage while setting up something. So I'm looking at the roster for EDG, and their lineup actually just outranges in a lot of cases Azir and the poke from Zet. So it's going to be so obnoxious to play against as the game goes on. And you have Maokai just sitting there.
Yeah.
So Game Talents actually has a lineup that they just need to, as the mid game goes on, they need to look to skirmish as much as possible, especially with the 2 kills on that Kled. So I love the composition coming from Game Talents in the mid game. So, you know, I know you guys like to take it a little longer in this game, but let's finish it up now.
Yeah, it is going to be a challenge. I like how even in that hypothetical scenario where EDG kind of outrange and outdamage the team, Game Talents still have Kled.
Yeah.
So they just pop Kled out and run in as 5. I think
Yeah,
that's the
true.
most like LPL answer. Oh no, they're going to out-siege us. I guess we're going to have to go in as 5.
I mean, Kled, that's actually a really good point. Is that the Kled is actually such a good pick here, now that he actually has a lead, that is.
Yeah.
And that he can out-split push here. So, like, if Maokai tries to match him, Kled will always be able to skirmish him. He has a lot of damage, surprisingly, and he's going to be able to take down these turrets. So you don't want to actually go in a split push scenario against the Kled, and Kled is the answer to the range that EDG has and the fact that he can just hard engage.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as the game goes on, there's still answers here, but I still like the late game comp.
It becomes one of those volatile situations.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, you have a big damage source. We have a way to get on him. Can you protect him? And then sort of the yes and no decision tree as you work down towards that. As it looks, though, EDG are pressuring that top lane. Ooh, Zubin.
Oh,
he might still go down here. Sonic Wave, flash and heal. Is going to survive. That's going to be suppression on the Fire Lily. He drops, but trades his own headshot for another. Savoki leaps away with some help from Wushong. And they trade 1 for 1, but Zet and Mako are still up, and they might be looking to pressure this.
Well, he's not been having a good game here. So 17 minutes into it, the first failed tower dive into the top side. You know what? I'll give him that. That's fair. You didn't know how Kled works out here. Maybe you thought you can burst him down before he turns and gets his skull partner. That being said, here we got Gimgoon in a bit of a bad situation.
Yeah, they're trying to catch Koro out of
Koro.
position. He's doing a lot, but he just does not have enough. Can't survive both the Kled and a Rise. And Wushong flash engages onto Zet. That's heal being used as well. They've got some vision, trying to kite it around. Savoki's waiting in the wings, doesn't have the suppression, and Wushong is going to walk it off. But that's bottom tier 1 taken now for Game Talents, and Republic gets back in time to find Scout. Gets him down really low. Can he land the next one? No, he doesn't find it. That's the exhaust. Gets knocked away, and that is Scout missing. Republic flashes, but Fire Lolly with the save from downtown.
Scout and Fire Lolly knew that Republic still had flashed up. They were like, you know what? Let's take this fight. The exhaust goes down. Unfortunately, Scout doesn't hit the ulti. So it was a really, really bad situation to find himself. But Fire Lolly comes flying in and takes that Q from Ryze. And you know what? There we go. They get the kill, and they get the mid lane tower.
They certainly do. Just like that, it's back to EDG's lead as we get closer to that 22-minute mark, about 1,000 gold ahead. Though that bottom tier 1 has now been cleared out. And see that Zet going for a recall. Finished off the Yomus, as you predicted, the armor penetration build, the lethality. And now with Ocean Drake spawning in 10 seconds, the teams are starting to set up some vision with their bigger items. Runans has now been finished for Zubin. Still got that BF sword for some core damage. And just taking a general look, Black Cleaver now finished for Gimgoon as well, so things are starting to shape up for Game Talents.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough for Game Talents, even though they're starting to get into the item points that they were looking for Caitlyn. What's hard is that they're trying to get that mid lane lead and mid lane shove, and they lose that tower. So that just means that even though the gambit that Rise had in looking towards bot lane and getting Kled the extra kill, he comes back into the lane, loses his mid lane. That just means that EDG will have a way to keep tabs onto Republic, and so he's not going to be able to do that any longer, or else they just continue to lose more pressure on the map. So it's going to be tougher for Republic. He's going to have to get the rest of the team to help him out. And hopefully, actually, they just decide, you know what, Gimgoon is so massive, he's so strong, that let's just put Republic on the side lane, get us a 1-3-1, so it really doesn't matter if they've lost pressure in the mid lane. With that being said,
Republic does find Scout. Scout still has his flash, though, and whoa, that's a lot of damage. Knocks him back into the minion wave. Republic cannot follow up. Gimgoon even teleports, and they're chasing. Ooh, I thought that was about to be an amazing interaction, but tragically it was not. Scout flashes, and Wushong follows up to lock down the kill. 5v4 for a short time.
Ooh, the world is just out to get Scout because he can't find a lane to sit in. So now the fact that they put Rise into the bottom lane and Kled up into the top side, I mean, that time they had him in the bottom lane, but they're just making it so it doesn't matter that they lost mid lane tower. Suddenly you have to constantly deal with Kled and Rise, and there's not a single person on EDG to do that. They have to do it as a team. So if Rise is in the bottom lane, that means you have to commit to that TP, or somehow Azir has to escape. He didn't, but he somehow needs to find a way now.
Yeah.
And then Kled is, I mean, Maokai can keep Kled at bay, but for only so long. So suddenly EDG, they need to, you know, start to pressure something. They have a massive lead with Zet and Mako. Right now they're looking to siege their mid, but they need to actually continue to pressure top because they did that before and it was working so well for them. So they need to pressure that point until Game Talents respects it enough to challenge it instead of creating their own play on the opposite side.
They were able to take advantage of Game Talents being a little bit shaky on that Ocean Drake when it spawned. You saw both Fire Lolly and Koro shred through its health very quickly, and Game Talent seemed content to give it up, but it looks like the Game Talent Gank Squad, ooh, say that 5 times fast.
Game Talents Gank Squad.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Start clearing out some vision on that top side of the map. Now that we're after the 20-minute mark, Wushong is like, let me clear this board.
You won't get me this time.
Now the Baron's up, they're trying to prioritize some of their vision. And the control ward actually misses the one in the pit.
So I like the control ward that they do have because that's the pink ward that will get every ward EDG tries to soft set in, right? They can't reach out and get into the Baron to place that ward. But that being said,
he doesn't have flash. He's still got a heal, but it's not going to be enough. He goes down to Zet as 4 members of EDG catch him out of position. Sorry, make that 5. Where did this push come from?
Yeah, here we go. That's what they needed to do. They need to force Game Talents to play their game. And they're doing it. Set up mid. That's all you need to do. You have a fantastic Pope comp and a Siege comp. Set that Azir passive up and let's go at it.
Are they going to try to break down this inhibitor turret? 22 minutes in. Korra gets caught out. Chain of Corruption locks down Republic as Wushong is forced to jump away.
They need to back away because Maokai just simply took too much damage. So he's their only tank insurance to stop an engage from coming in. So Kled is only not going to go in because obviously Maokai is going to stop him, and Scout and Zed are too damn dangerous. So I love the fact that they caught on to Zubin and they just set up and towards mid lane because there's no way for Game Talents to actually have that consistent damage to upkeep a team fight. But with that being said, Zubin, I mean, you just have to watch out. It's not your job to actually keep these wards out placed unless if you're with your support and with your jungler. It is too dangerous out there. Take a teammate with you.
Yeah. It's dangerous to go alone. Take this.
Yep.
And now all of the work that Game Talents did to set up vision around that Baron has been almost completely undone. There are wards all up in that top side jungle. There's even now a control ward in the river. There is one regular ward for Game Talents in the back of the Baron pit, just on the opposite side of Baron. It's underneath the arrow right now. Oh, and now it just expired. So there goes all of that hard work that they tried to set up.
It's going to be so hard for Game Talents. The reason why is because EDG has set up so much pressure towards the mid lane, and at the top, oh baby, get out of there.
And they're going to try to catch Fire Lolly as he's contesting the ward clear from Game Talents, but intelligently they bring down their AD carry, they bring their support as well. They've already got Republic on that side of the map.
Well, he doesn't even need to back too, because he got that nice plant, and on top of that, he already has the sustained dragon in the Ocean Dragon. So you can actually just sit back a little bit and actually just relax, regains HP. But yeah, they've lost so much. Game Talents has lost so much pressure mid that suddenly you have to constantly react to EDG because you just don't have any wards placed down. You won't be able to.
Ooh. And without that vision, they don't see this push coming. EDG are able to shove top and take the tier 1. They're going to answer by going bottom. Koro is caught. Bear trap on a rope is going to try to lock him down long enough. Zubin and Wushuang should be able to break him down, but EDG are going to engage in this race.
It's going to be a race, all right. They went for the Maokai. They were able to get him, thankfully.
Republic sidestepped the Sonic Wave and is going to stay alive, so at least he can contest the minions. Game Talents are ahead and are already on the inhibitor. Despite it being a 3v5 in this base race, Game Talents are winning. They're taking the inhibitor, and EDG are not fast enough. As you've said, they've stopped the backs. The inhib goes down, and only now can EDG try to recover from this.
That was just amazing. That was an amazing race, all right. That was actually ridiculous in the sense that they decided to actually go into Republic and get the kill on top of that, but the time they wasted, they didn't even get the kill on Republic, and they lost so much time, and that suddenly, all right, yeah, we're taking down this inner tower, but they're already at our inhib tower. They're far too slow. They have to back away. So now that they've lost the inhib in the bot side, what this means for Game Talents is that they have so much topside pressure, they can just rely on the super minions to constantly just go towards that bottom lane, that they can clear all of these wards, at the very least, if not pressure Baron. So EDG needs to do something, and they need to do something now.
Yeah, they found Fire Lolly, pull him back in, but it was an elaborate ruse. Gimgoon very tanky. Republic again steps casually out of the way. They turn on the scout as Gimgoon tries to find Mako. It's chaos on both fronts. They're splitting left and right. Wushuang trying to deal with this big old Maokai, but Republic is keeping him at bay. Zubin finally shows up with that AD to try to break him down, but so far it's been Scout who has died. Republic comes in with a flank from Gimgoon and Savoki. They've won on the right front and turn it into a victory on the left, chasing Koro down and chopping that tree to tiny little bits.
They can't do Baron at all. The fact that Zet has so much HP on him, so much mana, he's just going to poke them down to death. So they're going to continue. Game Talents is going to continue to look for this, but they cannot start Baron because it would be far too risky for them. Unless right now the minions are actually just hammering down on the actual Nexus turrets. So if they can force people to actually deal with it, then you've got something going for yourself.
Yeah, Game Talents are putting pressure in 3 places. Blue buff mid lane and the Nexus turret, excuse me. Scout finally respawns and is able to clear them out, Rylai's Nashers, but that was just not a happy engage.
So this is really forced from Scout. He needed to make this happen because of the pressure going towards that bottom lane, but he couldn't get the ulti. It just, slippery fingers. Unfortunate, not going to happen. So he puts himself in a really tough position, gets killed out by Wushuang, and suddenly you got the Maokai. And I mean, it was really hard to take him down, but overall, this is Game Talents' fight to win.
It certainly is. They follow up with that Realm Warp and chase Koro down. Poor guy. You heard the woman in the audience crying out. She wasn't happy about it either.
Yeah, I was wondering where that noise is coming from. Which character actually does that? I'm trying to figure that out.
It's not a League of Legends character, as a matter of fact.
All right, I'll take it.
That's the crowd in Shanghai.
Thank God.
But that is Ocean Drake now picked up for Game Talents. They're 11-4. Still only 1,000 gold ahead, but they've got that inhib down. They've got control over the Baron pit for now. And with all 5 members on that side of the map, they're trying to secure vision as well.
Yeah, actually, this is a really weird build from Set. He's gotten himself the Black Cleaver. I'm not too fond of that because you need to actually take stack autos to get that going for yourself. So I would have much rather have seen the Edge of Night, right? That's what we've seen in EU, is that it doesn't matter if it's patch 7.1, you're still incredibly strong, especially since he's level 13 going on to level 14. He's actually going to reach parity with the armor penetration points. So he needs, now that he has just the armor shred and from the movement speed and the phage in that Black Cleaver, it's not that helpful. I just don't like it. There's better items out there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Zet certainly is the pro player. Hopefully he knows what he's doing.
Yeah,
I mean he did just get back from Chinese New Year.
Yeah, he's playing
Realm Warp.
Anywhere.
They're going to try to 4-man Realm Warp onto Fire Lolly. They burst him down. Gimgoon even gets in there as well. Savoki trades his life back over, and Mako now is going to be followed up. Bear Trap on a rope is instantly cleansed. There's Exhaust. And Game Talents are burning a lot to run away from this. Zubin even forced to flash the wall.
Game Talents has to watch out. The fact that we have Azir doing that much damage right now, he's finished up his items so far. He's got himself that Nashor's Tooth. He's got himself the Void Staff and, of course, the Rylai's Crystal Scepter. He's doing a lot of damage. He's doing so much, and so he's just able to just burst down Savoki. You can imagine that he'll do that to the rest of the team, and Zubin, Republic, and Wushuang, they're all incredibly squishy.
Oh, Gimgoon is going to land the trap onto Koro. They follow up. They're going to have to burst through the tree, but Wushuang takes some damage, forced to sidestep. They're burning through Koro as fast as you can, but